Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and I'm excited to have Dan Moisand, partner of Moisand Fitzgerald Tamayo, a fee-only firm based in Florida, on the show today. This episode was a little different because Dan has been in business for almost 20 years. So the conversation was really focused on how they run their firm. They have remarkably low turnover, and we talked about how they've been able to manage that. So we chatted through their hiring process, compensation plans, a pretty unique bonus structure, which was cool to learn more about, and more. Dan is also very involved in the planning profession, having served in the FPA, CFP board, and now with the Foundation for Financial Planning. So he shared his reasons for being so involved and why he thinks it's important for other planners to get involved as well. We specifically talked about his work with the foundation and how planners can get involved and help provide financial planning to a variety of people in need, including members of the military, and thanks to a new initiative, those diagnosed with cancer. This was a pretty wide-ranging interview, so I'm confident everyone will have some great takeaways throughout it. Is bookkeeping a major pain point for you? If so, you're not alone. Many financial advisors hate bookkeeping, and guess what? They're often terrible at it too. Enter the Bean team at FA Bean Counters powered by XY Planning Network. Their free chart of accounts template will help you tackle one of the most basic but often incorrectly done bookkeeping tasks. Visit fabeancounters.com/XYPN radio to download the template and learn how to set up your chart of accounts like a pro. You can find any of the additional resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/195. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Dan. Hey, Dan, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm excited. You spoke at our conference last year for a few minutes talking about the Foundation for Financial Planning's pro bono work and program there. And that's how you and I had met before, but that was sort of the impetus for this show. So we'll dig into some of the details there as we go, but really excited about that. Could you give listeners just a quick overview of you and your firm? Where are you located, number of clients, how long you've been in the business, and then we'll dig into the details.
Yeah, okay. I started in financial advice generally back in 1990 as an insurance agent. I've gone through a number of iterations since then. I got that job because I needed a job. I'd gone to rural eastern North Carolina chasing after a girl and needed work. So I knew I wanted to be in personal finance, and that's about all there was at the time. But today I am one of 5 partners in a very traditional, boring, we do nothing exciting financial planning shop, RIA, fee only. Our main office is in Orlando, where there's 11 people, and there's 4 here in Melbourne, which is due east of Orlando on the Atlantic Ocean. So it's the Space Coast, is what we're called. Our area code is 321. Accordingly, some of my clients are rocket scientists, and it's a lovely, lovely beach community here in sunny Florida. So we've got about mid 500s for households, 580-ish million assets under management. Traditional firm, traditional metric. So there you go.
All right. Yeah, reporters always ask, AUM, man, what's the AUM? Our members generally hate answering that question because it makes us sound like failures. But
well, it doesn't really matter what the answer is. Somebody can consider that small or huge or anything in between. It's a completely meaningless number.
That is true. To a lot of advisors, 580 million sounds like an unbelievably large number. And there are some firms out there that would not even consider buying a $580 million firm because it's too small. So yeah, to your point, it's all relative.
Yeah, worry about the 500 households that we serve more than anything else, and everything else takes care of itself.
So you work with a lot of rocket scientists. Is that sort of a niche that the firm has, or is the firm, you said, more traditional, so a little more generic in terms of, working with, folks that have $1 million or more, and you've just sort of found this niche of rocket scientists?
Well, it's hard not to find rocket scientists in this area or engineers. It's a very well-educated area. There's also good military presence because there's a Air Force base here and an Air Force station that helps support the operations at the Cape. And so you have a lot of military guys, Air Force folks that come through here and are stationed for a while, and they look around, they go, hey, that's a pretty nice area. And they come back when they retire. So there's a good professional community to serve all these very educated folks. So it's not high dollar like Palm Beach County or, parts of Miami, but it's definitely upper middle class because you've got so many well-educated people in the area.
So what was it about financial planning that attracted you into this business? I mean, I get it. You take a job because it's the job that's available, but you've stayed and spent your career in this business. So what is that? I mean, why do you think that is?
Well, intuitively to me, it just made sense that your household finances are going to be better off if you take a more comprehensive, holistic approach to managing those finances. So, you're out there selling insurance to tobacco farmers in Eastern North Carolina. That's great. They need insurance, but they also need a lot of other stuff, and it needs to coordinate all the typical things your listeners would be quite familiar with. But to me, it just clicked that was a better way to handle things because you can't spend $1 on two things at the same time. Uncle Sam gets it, then you can't have it to buy food or tuition or pay for a mortgage or rent or whatever it is that you're trying to spend the money on.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I have always enjoyed about financial planning is that it really does touch every area of someone's financial life, that you really do get to dig in so many different areas just to try, just to see where people are at. And you don't have to focus on just one, narrow piece of it. But you said you started out on the sales side, and it sounds like sort of have evolved into the advice side, or was there sort of a moment where you realized, the advice-centric financial planning was a career path option for you?
Yeah, I had no idea that financial planning existed as a thing to do. I thought it was you sell insurance, you're a stockbroker. That's about it, So I came across a family when I was doing the insurance that had a financial plan from a company called IDS, which was later bought by American Express, became American Express Financial Advisors. And now it spun off years ago, and it's what people know as Ameriprise. So I knocked on the door in Greenville, North Carolina, the IDS office, and said, I think I know what you do here, and I'm really interested. You should probably hire me because I hate what I'm doing now. And that worked out. That was my introduction. I got really, there are a lot of people in that company that really got financial planning for what it could be. But it was also a very big company, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, and that's what ultimately led me out of there. But I got real lucky with a training manager that just, that's where I got the religion. I got the bug there and couldn't get rid of it. Financial planning was the way to handle a household's finances. They were very pro CFP at the time. In the early 90s, I think there was about 35,000 CFPs, and something on the order of 10,000 of those people worked or had worked at IDS American Express.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've known that they were an early adopter of the CFP. I did not realize it was that extreme.
Yeah, it was massive at the time. So, it wasn't a place I could stay. Too much bureaucracy. It was too slow moving. I went to an IAFP conference in 97, and they let me go to the conference for free if I would stand in the booth in the exhibit hall for American Express, right? And I went to a reception that they hosted where all the top brass was there, and they were very forthcoming and candid about things. It was a wonderful evening, but I walked out of there going, man, this is just slow as molasses. We got to do something. And so at the IAFP conference, you're in the presence of every major independent broker-dealer in the country exhibiting. So we went around the exhibit hall, my business partner and I, and decided to make a change. So we left behind all of our clients and started fresh with LPL, which at the time was a very well-run, tight ship. Their chairman, Todd Robinson, had been chairman of NASDR, the forerunner of FINRA. They ran a very tight compliance shop, which was important to us. Started from ground zero, left all the clients behind, built things up a little bit, I decided I wanted to go fee only. I figured that one pain in the neck regulator was probably better than having two. And when you're choosing between, I just kind of put myself in the client's shoes. And what clients want is they don't say the word fiduciary, but that's what they want. Somebody to act in their own business, our own interests and all that. And, I didn't become instantly smarter or more ethical when I gave up those licenses and went fee only, but I did get rid of a lot of baggage, probably preaching to the choir here with the XYPN network, but that was the evolution. So a little different leaving an independent broker dealer. If you have client relationships, you can bring those with you if you choose to, which I did. Most of my work was done fee-based, so it was a pretty easy transition. That was in 2000 and been fee only ever since.
So one of the things that I'm aware of from your bio is that you actually served on the CFP board's ethics committee, along with many other roles there and other just volunteer, opportunities that you've taken advantage of to really be a leader in the profession. But because of your work on the CFP ethics board, I think you make a really good point that sometimes we're accused of holding fee-only advisors a little too high up in, talking about just because you're fee-only doesn't make you a good advisor. And I 100% agree with that. So what has been your experience either inside the firm and sort of your own transition, as well as sort of seeing other firms come through that have been violating, overall ethics rules, just how fiduciary and fee-only and adhering to those rules, does it really happen? Is it better to be fee-only? Are advisors that are operating under fee-only model really, working in a better environment? I guess just overall opinions in that area.
I absolutely believe they're working in a better environment. The easiest way to deal with a conflict of interest is to eliminate it. Now, you don't eliminate all conflicts of interest by becoming fee only, but you eliminate some pretty big ones that historically have created the most problems for the consumers. The third-party compensation, right? And that's what people are wondering in their head. So there's a few different angles to it. As a business owner, by going fee only, I'm eliminating having to manage a whole slew of conflicts. So that makes things easier for me. I still have conflicts. We still obviously have standards that we have to adhere to, but it's a much more focused set of issues. So that makes it easier to run the business. It's easier to communicate with the public and frankly, market the business if this is the case, because one of the things that's running through their heads, whether they're able to articulate it well or not, is this person giving me advice that's best for me, or is he getting a little something on the side? That potential poison to the relationship is gone. It does not exist. And anytime you get any indication that might be what they're thinking, you get back on it and explain it to them and show them that's not the case. But it helps fast forward to the types of conversation that build trust, which are the conversations you're having about their needs and how you're going to serve them. When I was with LPL, actually, not too long after I made that change, I met with a prospective client, wanted to know about compensation. He asked very reasonable questions, intelligent guy, spent an hour with him. And when he left the office, the thud of that door, it hit me. I just spent an hour with this guy and I don't know a damn thing about him. He knows a lot about advisor compensation, but I don't know a lot about him. He's a little bit better educated, but he's not anywhere near as better off as he could be. And I'm nowhere closer to getting along in a good relationship with a good prospective client. And so that kind of got me on the train I need to do something about this and simplify it. On the consumer side, the thing about fiduciary is you're right. It's not a guarantee that the advice is going to be good. Fee only, not a guarantee that that's the case. But anytime there's a dispute, the very first thing that comes up is what standard of behavior should we be comparing this person's behavior to in the dispute? And when you can go to a lesser standard than fiduciary, it opens up a whole set of bad possibilities for the consumer. And we see that over and over again. The first thing that goes into FINRA arbitration is they put it, sue everybody in sight. They claim breach of fiduciary duty. And the brokerage firms on the other side, that's the first thing they want to get rid of is there is no fiduciary duty here. It wasn't an advice relationship, yada, yada, yada. That's what they're fighting over, the standard. So, laws and regulations generally can keep some people from doing something bad, right? Some people will not drink and drive because it's illegal, and it gives them just enough pause that they won't do it. The vast majority of people won't drink and drive because it's just inherently dangerous. But we need the law there because if it wasn't illegal, we couldn't do anything about the drunks. And that's where a lot of people are missing, I think, in this whole discussion about fiduciary. What the end game here is it gives a consumer a high standard on which their advisors can be judged.
It's a really great point because I've said before on the podcast that, you're only a fiduciary if you can be held to the standard of fiduciary. And that, a lot of advisors will say, yeah, but I work in my client's best interest. If they're with a broker dealer or they're selling insurance, like, yeah, but I know that there are conflicts of interest. I manage them and I work in my client's best interest. So how do you respond to those folks? Because that's sort of what you're talking about here where, they're saying like, we don't need a, drinking and driving law because I would never do that. But but then there's no fallback if they do violate that, and so how do you think about that?
It's a completely stupid response is what I tell them. I smile when I do that, but it's a stupid response. How is being required to do something you do as a matter of course at all a burden? It can't be. So if being required to act as a fiduciary were the rule that applied to you, and you actually put your client's interests first all the time, you're not being burdened. You're just doing what you always did. And you need to come on board with that so that we can get rid of the people that don't put their client's interests first.
So the argument is I can't be a fiduciary and also sell insurance, right? But just in the current format or be with a broker-dealer because my responsibility is actually to the parent company. So I'm not allowed to sign a fiduciary oath or there's services I want to be able to provide that I can't underneath the fiduciary model, but I'm still going to act in my client's best interest all the other times. It does get complicated.
Yes, that is a very different argument though, isn't it?
True.
I act in my client's best interest, so don't make me a fiduciary. That's different than I don't want to be forced into this because of my current employment situation. And, in the words of Guido, the killer pimp from Risky Business, never F with another man's livelihood. I mean, that gets people very uptight, and I completely understand it. And I went through that transition, so I know it can be done. If I can do it, for Pete's sake, everybody else can too. But it was also financially easier for me because when I left American Express, I left all the clients behind. When I cut the ties to the broker-dealer world and the insurance world, I didn't have a whole lot of residual income coming in from trails and that kind of thing. So I understand the economic argument, and I understand why so many are hesitant to it. But while I'm sympathetic, I don't think that's a reason not to continue to push for the progression of the profession toward being a true profession. And that requires a fiduciary standard of care and accountability and responsibility.
So when did you split off and actually start your fee-only firm? Like how many years ago was that?
That was early 2000. So
early 2000. So it's been almost 20 years now.
Holy crap.
Sorry to put it that way. That means you were an early adopter of the fee-only model just because it wasn't sexy and cool to do it then. It most certainly is more so now, but that was pretty early on. I mean, were you able to find other advisors at that time that were also in that model? Were you sort of off on your own doing this thing and then eventually found the folks that were doing it?
Yeah, it was a lot hard. I didn't know it was sexy, but I wish I'd known that then. I might have felt sexier about it. But yeah, no, it was harder to find fee-only people to associate with. So when I met my partners, I met them at a FPA meeting. And I just started asking, because I'd always been looking for partners. In fact, I wrote about it and won a call for papers competition with the Journal of Financial Planning back in 2001 about how much of a loser I was. Nobody wanted to go into business with me, and they gave me an award for the paper, which is very nice. But I was just always in the habit of asking questions. How do you do this? How do you do this? What do you see in here? What do you see in there? I still do that all the time when I'm at industry events. And one of the partners there just kept giving me the same responses I would give. And she finally said, so what's with all the questions? Because I really started basically interviewing her, and she felt that a little bit. I said, well, you guys ever think about having an office in Melbourne? And, one thing leads to another. And, we started dating, and about 14 months later, we got hitched. But they were not totally fee only at the time either. They wanted to get that way. And my presence and the collaboration therein kind of helped us all figure out how to get that done. So that happened pretty quickly.
So they already had an established business then that you joined.
Yeah, exactly.
Or did you have your firm and you merged it in?
Yes, I was a solo. But I had one of the things at American Express is I was involved in one of the early team practice building initiatives. We were one of the first team practices at American Express. And I got just enough of a taste of a partnership and what that could do that I knew that was the way I wanted to practice. It's definitely not for everybody. It requires a lot of compromise. But I didn't want to have to be able to be good at everything. It's still the case. There's more outsourcing options today than ever before. Not so much back then. I definitely wanted to be in business with other folks that had some skin in the game, divvy up the workload, focus on things that were really enjoyable to me. And it was a very good fit. So that's why I ended up stopped being a solo practitioner and merged into their firm.
Yeah, I think this is an important topic because I know we have a lot of firms that got started in the last couple of years. They start rocking and rolling and they're bringing on clients. And then they're just like, oh, would I rather partner? Would I rather be with someone? What is life like on the partnership side? So it sounds like you knew from previous experience, having partners and other advisors in the firm was the way to go. But once you start your business and suddenly you own 100% of the stock in that business, it's hard to give up. It's hard to let go of being 100% owner and 100% control and decision maker. So how did you ultimately let go? And what advice do you have for advisors that are, wondering if they should go that route versus staying solo and just outsource to a TAMP or whatnot?
Yeah. So I've said this many times over the years. I couldn't outsource then like you can now, but you could hire, right? Internally people to do a lot of things. And that can work. And that was a consideration. But when looking honestly at my skill set or my lack of skill set, one of the things that I did not have a very high level of confidence in, I really didn't have that much, it sounds bad, but I really didn't have that much of an interest in developing a high level of skill, would be with personnel management, HR type of things. So
people management.
Yeah, right. So, you outsource that takes a lot of the HR tasking off your desk. You don't have to deal with the payroll and stuff like that, but you do still have to manage your outsourcing partners. Yeah. So without the outsourcing and they're all in-house, you can see how that would be a bigger management or a different management issue. And it just wasn't one that I wanted to spend my time and energy on. And I'm in the business of helping people leverage their time and their energy and their attention. So I needed to practice what I preached. And I just didn't want to hire it out. I wanted to get that from people who had some skin in the game with me.
So was that part of the evaluation of partners, finding someone who really enjoyed the people development, people management side of, skill set?
Yeah. Among other things, there's a lot you have to do to be a good financial planner. And then there's a lot you have to do to run a small business. And as the business grows, there's more and more tasking that goes along with that. So yeah, it wasn't just the HR, but that was a big one. That was the one that was primarily focused on the issue of do I hire it out versus do I look for a partnership? But I had to be prepared to hire rather than go into a partnership if I didn't find a partnership that was a good fit. And so one of the things that I brought to the table that was attractive to them was I was starting to get a little bit of visibility within the profession, and because of that, within my local community. And they wanted to increase that. So this is right about the time I joined the board of the Financial Planning Association. I started out of the board in 2003, and we started talking in 2002. I'd won that award. I'd been the local ICFP chapter president in the late 90s. I was on the original practice standards board for CFP board back in 99 to 2001 or 2-ish, where we wrote the original set of practice standards. It was 25 people that did that. So people noticed that I was involved and they thought that might be helpful. We got together and kind of looked at all the things that have to be done with running a business. And there was a lot of complimenting there. And then personality-wise, we all had very different personalities. We had good baskets of clients that were different from the types of clients that the others used. So there was a little bit of a, target market diversity there. So it all kind of pointed to, on paper, this can work. So we started, as I say, dating there for a while. We dated for about 14 months before we got married.
So what is the structure now? What is your official role and title at the firm, and what do the other partners do? Sort of, how are you divvying up roles and responsibilities at this point?
Yeah, okay. So we don't really have titles. We just all call ourselves financial advisors, principals, if we're one of the 5 shareholders. So we have 2 other partners that are a little older than me. We're all under 60. We're all in the 50s. And Charlie Fitzgerald, who just got off CFP board of directors, by the way. He's pretty much the HR lead for the firm. So he's, making sure that our salary ranges are appropriate, benefits packages, goes through a lot of the performance reviews, the bonus structure. He kind of oversees all that stuff, a lot of the training and development. We have 2 G2 partners in their late 30, early 40s. And then we have 3 G3 financial advisors in Q. So all of that development of our 2 G2s and the G3s, not all of it, but most of it falls on Charlie's desk to kind of lay out that game plan. What skills are they developing? What do they develop next? That kind of thing.
G2 and G3, can you define those for me?
Generation 2, Generation 3. It's Philip Halaviv has a book that's actually called G2, and that's just the nomenclature. So you have the 3 founding aged kind of guys, Charlie, Ron, and I, and then we have new owners, and then we have a generation even younger and newer than them. It's not necessarily an age-based thing. It's more stage of career. But in our firm, it is age-based.
Okay. So you have G2 and G3. So G3 is that millennial population coming in. So your younger advisors. And then you'll have G4 here soon coming out of college. So,
well, yeah, that's right.
We got to figure out what the cutoff year is. I keep hearing 96 may end up being the cutoff, which makes, 23 turning this year. So yeah, so entering the workforce, maybe whatever Gen Z, whatever we're going to call them. So G4 for your firm. So, okay, so I'll let you finish in terms of roles, responsibilities. Then I want to go back and talk about some of the development, training, and compensation stuff.
Yeah, so then Ron's the CFO and the main guy with all the technology at the firm. And then I'm the lead guy on any kind of more than one-on-one type of communication. So I do content for the website. I'm the one that goes out and does the conferences and speaking and that kind of thing.
So in relation to that, do you all 3 have business development duties, or is that primarily your role, given that you're doing more of the marketing, outwardly facing stuff?
Well, we've always been, all 3 of us have been rainmakers through our careers. We don't have anybody on any kind of program for a specific number of clients or goals related to that. So all of our business development efforts for all 3 of us would be very natural for them. So Charlie likes to go to networking events. I can't stand them. So he goes to networking events.
God, that
right?
sounds terrible.
Yeah. I'm much better with, a one-on-one, get breakfast or coffee or lunch or something with a center of influence type of thing. So we do that. And then I'm overseeing all of the firm-wide type of stuff. So, put some stuff on the website. I'm creating all of it, at least the first go of all that stuff. I'm the one sending out press releases when we think we do something interesting, that type of thing. I'm the one that tells all the people trying to sell us advertising no.
But it's only $500.
All you got to do is get one client. It'll pay for itself.
If only they work that way. So is like most, you called your firm traditional and boring earlier. Are the majority of your new clients coming in from existing client referrals like most RIAs at this level?
Yeah. Yeah. But we do get a fair number. You get to a size where there's 5 principals, and then we've got all this outbound stuff out there in the ether. You pick up things on top of that. So, but yeah, the biggest source of new clients is still referrals from existing clients, and we're kind of happy that that's the case.
Awesome. So going back, you mentioned that you have the partner that a lot of what they do is around development of people and compensation. So this is an area where a lot of our advisors. You sort of mentioned this earlier that there's a lot of work that goes into running a small business. And, a lot of advisors start their financial planning firm because they love doing the work of being a financial planner, and they sort of have to run the business. And maybe they choose to hire a person or two, and they're still stuck because they really don't enjoy the business side. They prefer the, doing the financial planning side. But these are questions that come up around how do you compensate and pay people. It'll be a little different just because your firm's established than someone who's hiring their first or second person. But can you talk me through how you make decisions around compensation, particularly in the area of bonuses, and how you're aligning those incentives to be sure that everyone's working towards the same goal and you don't incentivize the wrong behavior?
Yeah. So there's 2 main bonus. First, everybody in the firm is on a base salary commensurate with their job duties. We get those base salary ranges from the various compensation studies, Investment News, and FPA, and whoever's running the compensation studies. We also participate in benchmarking studies with Schwab. I think TDA does one. I know Schwab does one. DFA does one. We use some DFA stuff in our portfolios. And so
Investment News has a big one now.
Yeah. So, sometimes they do compensation, sometimes they don't, but there's always somebody doing a compensation study somewhere. So the data tends to be fairly consistent about salary ranges and purported salary ranges in our area. So that's a guide for how to set the base salaries. Now we have a thing called a team award, and that's based on net new revenue change from prior year. So that would be getting new clients, increasing revenue on existing clients, minus revenue lost. And the better we do, the better everybody's team award is. And that kind of helps foster the better the firm does, the better you do. But there's also an element for most employees where they want to be rewarded if they do their job really well, regardless of what happens with anybody else. So we also have individual performance incentives. And those are tailored year to year. They don't change radically what we're looking at. The pay scale itself is written down, and it's after a year, you're eligible for an individual performance award. It's a certain percentage of your base salary. People on an advisor track, the range goes a little higher than people on a more administrative track, but not much. And the longer you're here, the higher the percentage of your base pay that award can be. And then how you get the award is based on what we need from that person and that position. So getting a high score for a category like creativity or behavior with your coworkers, right? It'll to get a high score in that this year, it'll take a little bit more to get the same high score the following year. And then as we need different things through the firm, we can change the weightings of different criteria accordingly. So if we need somebody to focus on, you need to spend more time developing your Excel skills or something like that. We'll put that in there, and then over the course of the year, we'll check in on it, and if they've done a good job at improving their Excel scores or Excel skills, we'll put that in as part of that bonus score, overall scoring calculation. So you can get rewarded for how we do as a firm, but you always have a bonus available based strictly on how well you do your job.
And do you agree? Does everyone agree to that up front, at the beginning of the year, that this is exactly how it's going to be calculated? Or is it more of a, top down on, hey, this is what you need to work on this year. So therefore, this is what, this is how we're going to base it this year. Just because I imagine if that's constantly changing, that could create some stress. If you got all your bonus one year and none of it the next and didn't feel like you had any control.
Yeah, no, it's not that radical a difference. So it's an incremental change. We don't suddenly take somebody that has no client-facing responsibility and say, okay, boom, now you're going to handle, these 10 clients out of nowhere. That doesn't happen.
Okay, got it. Do you ever get any pushback on the way that is designed?
We have not. I mean, everybody would like a bigger percentage.
Always.
Always. That never hurts. But no, nobody's complained about it. And it seems to work real well because they know that the business could only afford to pay a certain amount of bonuses in rougher years than spectacular years. That seems totally natural. But everybody wants control over how they are judged as much as possible. And that individual award really does help with that. So it's not simply because of the bonus structure. There's a lot more that goes into this culturally, but it certainly has not hindered our development of our culture in this firm. So in the last year was the firm's 20th anniversary. I joined 15 years ago, I guess. And in the entire span of time, only one person whose name appeared on our ADV as an advisor has ever left the firm. That was one of our former business partners. One.
Wow, only one?
Yeah. On top of that, after we had that ownership restructuring finished that up in early 2009, we have not had a single administrative person leave the firm in a decade.
So what do you attribute that to? Because turnover is it's the most expensive issue that we deal with as business owners. It's, and in financial planning, talent is so hard to come by that someone out there will outbid you for the talent that you have. There's, someone out there is willing to pay more. So what do you attribute the success of being able to retain that level of team members?
Well, it's partially a thing that contributes to the success of XYPN, which is, it ain't always all about money. I mean, you don't start a practice all by yourself, charging a way that's non-traditional because you think you're going to instantly make a bunch of money. There's something else motivating you to do it. So culturally, though, one thing we can control to some extent is the work environment, right? This should be a nice place to work. And it is. The hours are really good. We give everybody the third Friday off. So there's lots of 3-day weekends that they can take advantage of. The benefits are good, but mostly it's a very slow, very thorough hiring process focused on whether or not this person can be a good team member with the people that they're going to interface with the most. So the last administrative person we hired a couple of years ago, we partners did hardly any of the interviewing at all. We had the other client service people do most of the interviewing because that's who they're going to interact with. That's who's going to help them learn the job more than, I'm not going to sit there and either Charlie go over how to do certain bits of paperwork. The people that do it all the time are the ones that are going to do that. So they looked at it as they were adding to their own team. So they were. So that builds a lot of autonomy. It builds a lot of rapport. And it seems to have worked. And part of it too, Alan, is just dumb luck. I mean, things happen in life, So we don't get me wrong. We're fully understanding how blessed we are that this is the case. And we're going to have turnover. We have had turnover with new advisors trying to develop them into lead advisors. And we think that's where we're going to have most of the turnover going forward. And it isn't because, we're making it difficult. It's a difficult job in some respects, naturally. But a lot of people, especially as they're coming out of college, they go through a period where they're really wondering, is this what I want to do for a living? You don't really know until you get into it, right? So they go through that process. Is this what I want to be doing? And then they go through a second process. Is this where I want to be doing it? And we've lost junior, for lack of a better way to put it, future advisors for both those reasons over the years. We've had people we had a stay-at-home dad Decided he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. Can't really fault him for that, Good. All right. Take care of your kids. Absolutely. We had one that definitely wanted to be a lead advisor, but things didn't go as fast as he wanted. So he jumped ship thinking the grass was greener on the other side. And that's just the way it is. So, but we have very little turnover, have had virtually none on the most client forward positions. And I think that it contributes. So it's a virtuous cycle. It contributes to a good experience for clients, which means you don't get clients upset any more than what, markets and media do to people. They like the people that they work with, and that makes for a pleasant working environment. When you have a pleasant working environment, your people are pleasant to the people they work for, and it just kind of feeds on itself.
So last question, two more questions about this. One, whenever you look at the compensation that's out there, are y'all paying at market rate, or are you trying to pay 10, 20% above market rate in terms of total compensation? Like how, you said you compare yourself to the benchmarks, but what do you actually do with that information?
Yeah, there's a little bit of vagueness in those studies because they're good in that they give you job descriptions. They'll say, a lead advisor makes this much, this salary range, these geographical areas, and then there's tilts for how long they've been doing it, whether there's CFPs, that kind of thing. So that's all very helpful. But unless your description of the job duties matches up exactly, there's always some nebulousness in there. We tend to be above average, 75th percentile on base salary ranges. It's kind of where we tend to be. But you take the benchmarking studies as information so that you can feel good that what you're putting in front of people is reasonable and fair. Unless you're using the exact same job descriptions, you can't really use that as an absolute.
Makes sense. And then the last question on this is that you mentioned that you have a very rigorous hiring process, and that's something that we believe in here at XYPN as well, just because ultimately someone on the team who doesn't work out, it typically was a hiring process failure from my experience. So what is the process that you take team members through or prospective team members through to be sure they're going to be a good fit?
Yeah. So there's some, the typical initial screening of checking out what's on the resume, making sure that sounds appealing and then that it's accurate, truthful, a bunch of interviews.
Good grammar on the,
yeah. Yeah. So I had a fraternity brother in college when you had to go take your cover letters to get typeset, you couldn't just do it. And he misspelled the word accuracy cover letter. I was like, dude, I had to tell you this, man. You're going to have to go back. Yeah. So there's stuff like that. And then they talk to basically everyone in the firm. We're still small enough where we can do that. We have 15 total in the firm. So that's still possible. We get everybody's impressions, and some of those are more formal interviews. Some of those are more casual, quick, but we want them to meet everyone. So, phone interviews by the main people involved, then in-person time with everybody. There's some skills assessment. We'll give them, a little exercise, just basic stuff, depending on the position. So one we did with new graduate was go research investment returns of the S&P from, this period to that period and compare it to this, that, and the other. And we just see what they come back with. It gives you an indication of the Excel skills and what questions they ask to get clarification. If they ask questions to get clarification, we'll send, I do a Q&A for the local paper, and I do one for Market Watch every couple of weeks or so. And so I get tons of questions from readers, and we'll turn that into, you get this question from a client, how do you respond? You're looking for grammar and some kind of logic and things that I can't usually produce in my Q&A columns without the editor's help. But nonetheless, I have the job, so I know that's unfair. But yeah, so it just things like that, kind of get an assessment. And it just takes a long time to get through all of this process and have them talk to everybody that we want them to talk to. So it is good. Sometimes it's frustrating when you've got a candidate you think could be really good and they end up not following through because they got a position offer somewhere else.
Right. Always frustrating. So switching gears just a little bit, one of the things that from your bio and just knowing you have been heavily involved in the profession and really helping to build this, what is still an industry, into the profession that we want it to be, and really your entire career. So from serving as president of FPA and very involved in CFP board and all these other positions. So let me just ask, why spend so much time doing something that does not build your business? Like, what is the motivation to spend so much time helping the profession when you could be spending that much time going out and doubling your revenue over the next 5 years because you're just focused on client acquisition?
I don't know. I've never thought to do it any other way, Alan. If you're going to be in a certain line of work, you want to do it right yourself, and you want it done right by others. It reflects poorly on you when it's done improperly. And if you're doing something that's valuable for people, like financial planning surely is in my mind, you want as many people to be helped as possible. And I think everybody can see that there's a lot of distrust with financial services. And that bothers me because it means that there are millions of people who aren't getting help because they're afraid of us. And they shouldn't be afraid of us. It shouldn't be that difficult. So it's real important to me to continue to push and foster the profession. But a lot of that's selfish too. I mean, I get to hang around with other professional financial planners, not fake financial planners, I get to learn a lot of stuff. I've been very blessed through a lot of those activities. One thing kind of leads to another. And I think I've gotten far more out of it than I've put into it, but it manifests itself in very different ways. And I mean, I literally have been able to spend lots of quality time with the best financial planners in the world, all over the planet. And that helps you do a better job for clients. Clients certainly like it. And I think because of that, it actually helps build business. And there's no way to know if would the business be bigger if I didn't spend any time on this or not. There's no way to figure that one out. I don't really care. The business is mature enough and doing well enough. Knowing what I know about money and being in the field that I am, my kids are getting through college, without debt. That was our goal. I'll be able to retire. It'll all be fine. So it's, how are you going to spend your time? How are you going to spend your energy? How are you going to spend your attention? Same thing you tell clients. And that's where my interest lies. So that's where I spent my time.
You use the cliche that I use as well, which is volunteer involvement. I mean, you get more out of it than you put in. How do you define what you get out of it? I mean, you mentioned it doesn't sound like you're getting clients out of it, right? So by being involved, for some of our advisors that are listening, honestly, just being around a lot of these more experienced advisors, you will actually get referrals from their younger, prospects that aren't a good fit for them. They'll send them over your way. You could very much build a business that way. But what has been the benefit to you that you've been able to get an ROI on this time spent? Is it really just surrounding yourself with the best and the brightest? Is it more than that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel good about it too, because I feel more confident in my ability to serve clients and run my business. You can't say, okay, you became chairman of a committee at an FPA chapter. You put out a press release about that. It got printed in the local paper. And some guy's not going to call you up after that runs. That's just not going to happen. There's the direct link there. It's very rare that that's true PR generally. It's very rare that any one piece of PR is going to trigger picking up the phone. But none of your clients are going to be upset with you for doing that. They're going to think it's pretty cool because not everybody's going to do it. It says something about your interest in what you're doing. So there's staying power there. And it says something about what your peers think of you too. Now, there are some exceptions. Some chapters are really desperate to get people to do anything. But generally, the impression that you're giving clients and prospective clients is that other financial planners think enough of you to put you in charge of something. And I think that's a positive reinforcement. So I think it has been a good element of business development efforts, but it certainly wasn't. It's like anything else. You go volunteer at any local organization, nonprofit organization, and start passing out business cards, and people are going to roll their eyes. And they're not going to give, that's not it. If you're there genuinely to help the cause and you put in the effort, it reflects very favorably on you, and it's only a matter of time before that results in a prospective client who may or may not be involved with the charity at all. Somebody there might tell a friend, go see this guy.
So along that same vein, again, the sort of the impetus for this show was some of what you talked about at XYPN Live in the pro bono opportunities that are available out there. So can you just spend a few minutes and talk to me about just what opportunities are there for those of us that are CFPs that know financial planning? We've been working with our clients and we want to help, maybe folks that can't afford financial planning or are just in unique circumstances and need access to a planner, haven't had access to one before. What are the opportunities that are currently out there for advisors to be able to get involved and be able to give back?
Yeah, so a lot of that, there's a local element to what's available, and then there's a more national element too, like the technology. So the Foundation for Financial Planning was formed 1995-ish, very much a bootstrapped organization for a long time. But as it's gotten its footing, as pro bono activity has picked up within the profession, it's a legit foundation. It's got an endowment of 20 some odd million. People like Bernie Clark, Schwab's top guy at Schwab, David Cantor, top guy at Fidelity, are on that board. Some very prominent financial planners, Lisa Bowie, for instance, are on that board. And what we do is we, like any foundation, we collect money, and then we make grants to other nonprofit organizations. And the grants that we're making go to organizations that are focused on connecting people in need with real, live, legit financial planners for one-on-one counseling. So the primary areas where that happens throughout the country is a number of military organizations that we've partnered with in various locales. Your FPA chapter might have a pro bono director, and they may have a direct tie to an organization to deliver pro bono financial planning activity, or there may not. The biggest new program that we started in the last couple of years is the Pro Bono for Cancer Initiative, which I talked about at your conference. And I was overwhelmed with the reaction to that. We got 96 volunteers from that appearance. So I still need to get a tape of that to see exactly what I said, because it certainly resonated with that crowd.
Yeah, just reiterate for listeners, because most of the listeners were not at the conference. So just reiterate that piece of it.
I talked a little bit about pro bono in general. So there is a financial planning profession. It's just most of the rest of the world doesn't recognize it as such. But as long as people like you and me think of it that way and act that way, the rest of the world will get it eventually. So part of being a profession, and this is kind of the ethical underpinning that causes the pro bono work with the legal community, is they don't let just anybody become a lawyer and practice law, but the law is something that touches everyone. And so there's a responsibility from the profession to try to serve as many as possible. And that means giving away your time and your expertise sometimes. That's the impetus for the pro bono in the legal profession. When I heard that, it really kind of resonated with me with finances, right? Not everybody can be a financial planner anymore. There's some criteria there. But money touches everybody. So to me, it was a natural, oh yeah, this is important for the profession. So I got involved in doing some pro bono work, and it's really cool. You can't make a living, obviously, doing pro bono work, but there's a payoff there that's very real and very different from the payoff you get when you're working with somebody of means. And it was kind of addictive. And like so many people, I wanted to do more, but I couldn't. But getting involved with the foundation as a donor was a way to help do that. I could give some money to the foundation. They would fund certain grants, and that would help connect people in need with more planners. And one thing leads to another, and you end up on the board. So that's what the pro bono is about. The planners don't get paid. The money for these grants goes to. So let's give you an example. There's a domestic violence shelter. And one of the ways that these women are victimized is they don't have control over the money. The guy has control over the money. And they're in particular made to feel like they're not worthy of the money. They don't know how to handle it. So they can get away from their abuser, but they still have their financial life that they have to deal with, and they're totally unequipped to do that. So you put on a program where they can sit down with a real financial planner to help them make financial decisions. A lot of good can come out of this. But in order for that to happen, they have to know that the program exists. That's marketing. There needs to be materials available to them. That all costs money. There needs to be a place to do that. That all costs money. A lot of them are single parents. What are they going to do with the kids? If they have to pay for a babysitter, they ain't coming. So we need childcare. That costs money. And you can think that in the big picture of things, all of this should be donated by somebody. And in an ideal world, that would be the case. But the more things that are required to make it doable for these people to enter into one of these pro bono counseling programs, the more you realize you just wouldn't have the programs. So that's what the grants are for, to fund that kind of thing. The planners themselves, of course, do not get paid. It's pro bono. But you want to make it easier on the planners, too. Some planners would love a multi-session type of engagement. Some just want to come in, do the best they can, over a few hours and then go on their merry way. So different programs appeal to different planners. So you got to piece all that together, and a lot of that costs money. So that's what the money goes out for the grants.
So the mission of Foundation for Financial Planning is to what?
Power pro bono for the profession. It is the profession's foundation.
And the only one that I'm aware of, I think it is the only one, but so whether it's donating dollars or donating time, they're both equally necessary to be able to help the foundation be able to further its mission. So where can folks learn more about opportunities that are available, whether they're, most of our listeners are probably thinking in terms of time commitment, just because maybe they're new in their business or they're thinking about starting a business, so money is tight. But obviously that is wildly valuable. So where can they go to learn more about opportunities that are available?
Yes. So if they have a local FPA chapter that has a pro bono director, there may be a program there that appeals to them. There may not. The Foundation for Financial Planning.org is the website for the foundation. And there's links out to various volunteer and donor opportunities on there, all kind of information about what these programs look like. And that's probably the best place to go.
So thank you so much for sharing that, because I know that is a question that we get a lot of is how can I give back? How can I get involved? And, no one or most folks aren't interested in going out and starting their own nonprofit to try to, provide these services. You can leverage the infrastructure that's already there. Because like you said, the Foundation for Financial Planning has been around a while. They've got a pretty sizable budget at this point, have a lot of various opportunities. I was pulling up their numbers. It looks like they had almost 7,000 volunteers involved last year.
Yeah, the last time we did an impact study was 2016. And at that point, that year, we helped over 15,000 people. We've helped over 400,000 people total, 6.6 million in grants given over the years through 2016. That number is going to be a lot higher. The Pro Bono for Cancer campaign really resonated. Probably talk about that just a little bit. The foundation is the only foundation that is solely focused on making those one-on-one connections. And, I talked about the FPA chapters and what you might have going on locally may or may not be something that has appealed to you. The Pro Bono for Cancer initiative opens up a whole new possibility of volunteer service because it's predominantly remote. The idea behind it, social workers would find these people who have gotten the cancer diagnosis would just make panicked decisions. Let's raid the 401k, let's quit our job to give care at home, all these kind of things. And it dramatically increased their stress levels. There's actually a term for this called financial toxicity. The higher the stress levels, the worse the medical outcomes. The lower the stress levels, the better. No such thing as low stress when you're talking about a cancer diagnosis, but it's a relative thing. And so the social workers, Dana-Farber and Family Reach, two organizations in Boston where the genesis is coming from, wanted to get cancer patients in front of real financial planners very early in the process so that they wouldn't panic and they would have a greater sense of control over their finances. and they only have a certain amount of control. It's one of those things where you'll just spend every penny you have if you have to. But by doing that in a controlled manner, a manner that's thought out, a manner that has less surprises to it because you can lay out a timeline, they found that the stress levels were decreased, which should and do correlate to better medical outcomes. So they wanted to get the planners involved early on, and that's what this initiative is about. The training is virtual. The interaction with the patient families can be virtual. And so it opens up the possibility for volunteers from anywhere.
Very cool. All right. Well, for any listeners that are out there that, I think most of us have been touched by cancer in some way, whether it be a family member or a friend or us ourselves. So obviously a program that is easy to connect with in terms of the needs. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning more. And we'll put some links in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and Alan, think about this for a second. I get the hairs on the back of my neck stand up every time I think about this. It makes sense to me that lower stress improves medical outcomes. The more people we have involved doing this, it's almost a certainty. We won't be able to identify it, right? Exactly who this was, but somewhere along the line, that interaction with a financial planner is going to lower the stress level enough to make the difference.
Yeah, it's going to save someone's life.
Financial planning can save someone's life. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that's going to happen. I also have no way to, like I said, identify it, but that is a potential outcome. It's awesome.
It really is. So as we're coming to a close with our time here, I'll ask you the final question. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, one thing that you wish you had known then that you know now, what do you think that one piece of advice would be?
Probably, I'm being influenced here because of some recent events in my family with health issues. Probably that things aren't as serious as they seem. I've done a good job over the years of not taking myself too seriously. I take my work very seriously, but I don't take myself that seriously. And I probably overdid it a little bit with some work elements here and there. Life's too short, and I hope that my peers will say nice things about me when I'm gone. But if that's the main topic of conversation at my funeral is how good a financial planner I was for my family, I'll be very, very disappointed.
Fair enough. Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, share your expertise and career path and what you've been working on. Obviously, wide-ranging interview, but always fun. So thank you so much for the time.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate all the great work that you're doing and the XYPN folks are doing. I think it's a wonderful addition to the profession to have alternative methodologies and billing structures and all that. It just makes it more possible to serve more people because, different strokes for different folks. So it's a fabulous thing that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Is bookkeeping a major pain point for you? If so, you're not alone. Many financial advisors hate bookkeeping. And guess what? They're often terrible at it too. Enter the Bean team at FA Bean Counters powered by XY Planning Network. Their free chart of accounts template will help you tackle one of the most basic but often incorrectly done bookkeeping tasks. Visit fabeancounters.com/XYPN radio to download the template and learn how to set up your chart of accounts like a pro. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.